Hi, everyone. Welcome to Long for Truth. I am not Daniel Long. I am Robin Long. And where is my wonderful husband, you ask? He has succumbed to the flu, and he has a very snap, crackle, and poppy voice right now. He actually showed me a video of, I think, Peter Brady going through a voice change when he was 13.
When it's time to change, then it's time to change.
That is what Danny sounds like right now. So he asked me to sit in, and hopefully he will be back at the helm before you know it. So today we wanted to talk to you about, yes, another Daystar issue. There's a video out that the Roy's Report put out probably a day ago that goes over the board meeting that occurred in November of 2023. Julie Roy's put out the first half of that board meeting, and we are going to discuss that today. Why in the world, you ask, are we going to talk about Daystar again? We are going to talk about Daystar again because, not to gossip, as some people suggest that everybody just likes to gossip. You see a ton of Daystar videos out there right now. We want to make sure that everyone who is either watching Daystar, watching the false teachers on Daystar, doesn't understand that Daystar is an organization that promotes false teaching constantly. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to see what's going on at Daystar, start to question the teaching that you are listening to from so many of the teachers on Daystar. Lord willing, open your Bibles and start to compare what God's word says compared to what these false teachers says. So we wanted to do this video. Now, in this board meeting that we're going to watch a few clips of, there are a few people. There's Joni Lamb, of course, her son Jonathan Lamb, Tom Callender, who's like her right hand. I don't know what you call those mafia bosses that have the right-hand man that does all the dirty work. That's who Tom Callender is. He's the big boy in the room. And then another gentleman named Arnold Torres. We want to focus today on how this board meeting is pretty much a masterclass in bully leadership. We're going to point out some things to you. You feel free to make your comments, point out some stuff to us that you notice about how this is not a really biblical way to run an organization/church. Remember that Daystar calls themselves a 501c3 organization and a church at the same time. So let's look at some of the tactics used by the board. The first tactic is to protect. And let's see who they want to protect in this board meeting.
And until the annual board makes any other different decisions, I think it should be, I feel like that position should be filled for protection of the ministry in case something unforeseen happens to somebody.
I don't foresee that happening.
I think our job here is to make sure that the ministry is protected to the maximum. We asked John to draw one up for Daystar. That gives an extra level of protection above the handbook. We need it to protect ourselves now and especially down the future. And that's called a non-disclosure agreement. I feel very strong because it will give us the ability to protect Daystar. We are here to protect Daystar. Piece of process here is to keep Daystar in a position where we can protect Daystar.
So there you see a compilation of the numerous times Tom Callender mentions the main reason that they are having this board meeting is to protect Daystar. Now, why is that a bad thing? A corporation should be there to protect itself. Absolutely. But please remember that Daystar claims to be a church also. And if we have our main goal as a church to protect the church, and we don't mention God, the Lord Jesus Christ, his word in our board meetings at all, forgive me, they did open in prayer, but they don't mention God's glory at all, there's an issue. Why are we trying so hard to protect this organization? So it's a pretty good goal for a corporation, not necessarily a good goal for a ministry or a church. Let's move on. We're going to look now at another way that we can see bully leadership in action, and that is to accuse.
Now, Jonathan, I'm not going to be official, okay? You at the same place. You got to make a decision. You have to make a decision as to what you're going to do and what you're going to allow God to do with your future. And we're here to talk about one of the recommendations that you brought to us that we have to deal with today, okay? And we're going to deal with it. But you're almost at the same place Joni was, just a little bit different. You have to decide, are you going to be 100% allow to what God's called you to do and prepare you for what God has for you in the future? Or are you, quite honestly, going to continue to be not a little bit, rebellious? And I want an answer.
Sure, I haven't been rebellious.
And that's a blindness, son. I'm just going to be honest with you. Yes, you have. And you may not believe that, but you have. So that's how we got to where we are. Okay, and
I disagree with that.
Okay, that's fine.
I just said we can't read a card because
we're not talking about that. I'm talking about something bigger than that right now. We're going to get to the card in a minute.
That's the only thing. That's the only reason we're in this situation.
So let's go forward from that and deal with your request. Okay. I would rather.
This board meeting isn't being recorded, is it, by your computer or anything? Okay.
No, and we swept this to make sure we don't have any bugs that somehow or another information got out of here.
They should not be.
Okay.
So in that particular clip, the first thing I want to comment on is that last little bit we heard where Joni says, this isn't being recorded, is it? Obviously, they knew, and throughout this recording, you'll hear that they knew that someone had been leaking some information. And Jonathan does say he's not recording, even though I hear that pen clicking an awful lot. And I'm wondering if he had a recording device in his pen or on his person that was very close to him. And number two, I wouldn't hire Tom Callender as my security because they swept the room and didn't find the recording device. So there's an issue there. So anyway, back to using the bully tactic of accusing. Jonathan, you are rebellious. You're being rebellious. You're so rebellious, you're blind to your rebellion. On a very personal note, Danny and I, years ago, were in a church where there was some bully leadership in place. And I was in a meeting where a pastor said to me, I know what's wrong with you. I'm like a surgeon holding a knife, and I'm just waiting for you to let me open you up and repair you. That's bully leadership, especially when Tom Callender will not share specifics. He gives these broad generalizations. You'll see this a number of times in the clips. He gives a very broad statement. You did this. You lied to us. Well, give me an example. Well, I'll do that later. So here he's telling Jonathan how rebellious he is. He's so rebellious, he's blind to it, but he won't give him a clear example of it. It's not a very godly way. And one of the things I guess you'll notice is there's not a lot of gentleness, not a lot of kindness, not a lot of love in this meeting. They're getting down to business, and that business seems to be to diminish Jonathan or oust him. Let's move on to the next tactic, and that will be to dismiss.
So we're back to that's the reason for his concern.
Okay.
I have concerns. It's creating a power struggle. It's creating controversy. Your position is creating that.
But my position
your social
hasn't,
media.
My position hasn't
I have
been
not
stated.
read the policy. I'm told that your social media use of social media is violating the handbook. I think we are prepared to show that to you in fact after this meeting. You have somehow information in this room has been leaked to the media that should never have gotten out. There is absolute confirmation that you have communicated with programmers, creating doubt in programmers' minds as to the leadership of Daystar.
After he was told not to do that.
Well, he shouldn't have to be told. I mean, that's just should never have to happen. So those circumstances has created a security breach in Daystar that we as a board have to take action to prevent from happening. Now, there's tools out there
What programmers have I spoken to?
That security breach is the next subject that we're going to deal with, okay? We're going to come, we have reached out and we've researched, and we have the best way to control that security breach so that it never happen again is to use what most of the world uses that we never dreamed we'd have to use or think about, but now we're in a situation where we need it to protect ourselves now and especially down the future. And that's called a non-disclosure agreement.
Jonathan, your behavior is causing a few problems for the family, and we're going to need to take some actions. Now, if we have to do it one finger at a time, that's how we're going to do it. But we're going to make you sign this NDA. It's just going to happen. So Jonathan's request is dismissed there as he's like, okay, like what programmers have we'll talk about that later. Every time Jonathan asks a question or asks for evidence, he is put off to the side and said, yeah, we'll get to that later after the meeting, whereas I'm sure you think, and I think that the meeting would be the most appropriate place to discuss the issues that the family has with Jonathan so they can take care of the business. Let's move on and see how the bully leaders exclude Jonathan.
So I'd like to move to fill Marcus's position temporarily from now until the annual meeting in February. And I'd like to nominate Mr. Torres to fill that position.
I'll second the motion.
Call for the question.
Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to, the motion here is to add me as a board member.
Board member.
Temporarily until the next annual board meeting when we elect.
So
That's correct.
what would be the purpose of adding a fourth board member?
The purpose is that we are currently set up with 4, and until the annual board makes any other different decisions, I think it should be, I feel like that position should be filled for protection of the ministry in case something unforeseen happens to somebody.
Basically, if someone's health is in
Who
decline
knows?
or something.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We didn't expect Marcus. We don't know what tomorrow
Well,
holds.
we know you've never been to the hospital. So,
Who knows, you know?
I don't foresee that
Yeah,
happening.
I think our job here is to make sure that the ministry is protected to the maximum. And I think that gives a better covering and protection for the ministry in case something happens to one of the other 3.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about some of the more serious things, he needs to be on the board to hear all that stuff. And he's
Good
been
point.
along the journey.
So when you say, basically this is just giving Arnold the extra privileges to be able to participate in these high-level discussions
That's
and
correct.
decisions, versus just being the secretary.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Was that decision discussed beforehand? Because I haven't heard any discussion about addition of.
I think your dad actually sent an email sometime back that if something were to happen to him, he actually appointed Arnold as one of the people that would help in that process. I don't know. It was one of, not.
Yeah, if you and Dad were to die in a plane crash.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Arnold was really the only person, because it's already gotten so the Pandora's box has been opened. And so to bring someone in who's inside and who kind of knows what's going on without having to, there is somebody specific that Marcus recommended to me before he passed.
Yeah, and Joni did talk to me about it. Okay.
So you have had a discussion about adding a fourth
Yeah,
board
we
member? Just because
talked.
I haven't been a part of any
Yeah, I
discussions.
just talked to him early on about the person that your dad recommended.
Yes.
And then.
When was that discussion had?
Oh, that was a while back.
Yeah, that was early on.
Yeah, but I think the time
Well, we had a
is now.
board meeting, a few months ago,
Yeah.
and it wasn't discussed, so.
That was not at the agenda at that
We
point
weren't
in
going to do it
time.
at that point.
Okay.
I think the time is now.
So do I have those in affirmative?
Me,
Affirmative.
I think a three-person board is good. It's an odd number, so we're not going to, if we come to a tie, we don't have to have a procedure set in place to break the tie.
So you're not saying affirmative?
I'm saying negative. I think 3 per people is
Okay.
good.
Well, you were the fourth member of the board.
Well, right now,
When your dad was alive, you were the fourth member.
yeah, but there's 2-1, so the motion passes.
Right.
So the motion is adopted.
Yes. So now, Arnold, you are now officially in this conversation.
Okay, so I think we heard a couple more examples of Tom Callender verbalizing the main goal: protect the ministry at all costs. But during this clip, we learned that they want to add a member to the board, and everyone on that board had discussed it prior to the board meeting except for Jonathan. They had totally left him out, so I'm sure he felt a little blindsided by this. Why indeed do they want a fourth member on the board? Like, I would think, I would agree with Jonathan, 3 people is perfect because it will always be a 2 versus 1 situation. And right now, Jonathan knows he's never going to win that 2 versus 1 because Mom and Tom are always going to vote on one side, whereas he might vote on the other. So why are they adding Arnold? The only thing I could come up with is that maybe they intend on pushing Jonathan out. So then they'll go back to having their 3-person board. That's one option. Maybe they wanted another voice on there to kind of push down Jonathan's voice so that they voted in someone that Marcus had previously said, this is someone I would want on the board, Arnold. And that would allow Joni to step back a little bit. So as mom, she wouldn't have to come out so strongly against her son, but there would be 2 other voices that could come out against Jonathan. So if you have any other ideas on why do they need to add another person to the board, just pop them in the comments. So not that we need to figure it out, but it is a curious situation, isn't it? Let's move on to another example of how they are excluding Jonathan.
Creating turmoil creating turmoil within the company by not supporting his mother, not supporting the president.
I've always supported
who
my
has agreed to do certain things and then done something just the exact opposite. And I don't want to get into the minutia, okay?
Well, if you could clarify what made you change your mind?
Because honestly, I can't trust you. Now, I'm just going to tell you like this. I can't trust you. I've been told 3 things that you would do, and you did exactly the opposite.
Okay.
And that created a trust and a reevaluation in my mind. Now,
Could you clarify?
I'll clarify I'm outside of the board. Be happy to.
Why-
But that's not what we're here
No,
for
but
now.
it's good to know why.
I will clarify I'm outside, and you know what some of them are. And I will just go with one.
Okay.
You left this meeting, this room, sitting in this position, and I was sitting over there. You were going to write a statement and have Joni and myself approve it as to what was the status of you and Daystar. Okay, you came back and you did not do it. And then later, you and I had a conversation, and you decided to write it, and I asked you please to run it by Joni and Arnold, like we agreed in the board meeting, and you did not do it. Now, that to me is completely different than what you said you would do. That creates a point of concern in my mind.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? Now,
Well,
and that's...
there's a very good reason why, because
not making a difference
for
what the
both of those
reason
things.
why is, but that's what's happened to me,
Well,
okay?
that's why I need to make sure in the future, if any type of board decision, I make myself perfectly clear if I am unsettled on an issue to not commit to it and say, I need to go back and discuss this with my wife
And that's where we're headed
and
today.
figure out how we are working through this together.
We're going to be very, very clear,
Because
very clear as to
there's a decision that was made for being on television. I don't want to be separate from my wife. As simple as that. So if I was going to be coming on to say, and also I don't want to lie. So I don't want to lie about not being, why I was off TV. Like, there's a reason why I wasn't off TV, and it's clear, it's very simple.
and the back and forth and the anxiety and the ants in this meeting right now is a detriment to Daystar, and a detriment to the vision of Daystar, and a detriment to being able to do what it should do.
Okay, so Henchman Tom strikes again by saying, I can't trust you. There's 3 things you did. Well, please tell me what they are. I will after the board meeting. All these blanket accusations without the evidence for backup. He says, I won't get into the minutia. I'll bring it up later. And then they did discuss one thing that he wasn't happy with that made him say, I can't trust you. And that is that Jonathan said he would bring a document or write something up or sign something for them, and he failed to do that. Now, I don't understand why I wouldn't trust someone if they just failed to do something within a particular time frame. I would think you would call them in and say, hey, what's the issue? Is there anything we can work out together? How can we help you get this done? But that is one of the things that caused Tom to not be able to trust Jonathan. So you can see how that just everything is building and building and building during this audio to diminish Jonathan. And I'm sure he feels very cornered at this point. The next step in bully leadership would be to coerce or pressure. Let's see what happens.
Move that we adopt the NDA for the officers and the board to sign.
I second the motion.
I just made a motion.
But it's after this one. I
No,
will hear your motion after this was
This
already
is
on the board.
something that is all about control. Manipulation and control is what she's been doing ever since Doug has come into the picture.
Call for the question.
There's not a need to control when you have trust with one another.
Call for the question. I vote yes.
Sorry, excuse me. Gotta make sure I understand some of my notes. So just to make sure that we all understand, you're moving to adopt this form of NDA, and you're requiring each current and future trustee, not just us, but
Right.
future trustee and corporate officer, to sign a copy as a condition to continue service.
Continued service, absolutely.
That's what you're asking.
And
Okay.
if you do not sign it, just so everybody
You
knows.
seconded that.
I
Right.
second it.
Okay.
And we call for the question.
Okay, do I have, who's in front, I'll do what?
I'm affirmative.
How can we adopt this when there's such a lack of trust right now with my mother and I? And this is all about just, again, control the narrative. Why would you seek to,
Now, Jonathan, your mother had
Further
nothing
that.
to do with putting together this document. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
Mr.
of course, because she's not a lawyer.
Well, no, she had no, this is something that Mr. Callender
And
felt strongly about.
I feel very strong because it will give us the ability to protect Daystar.
Recording.
I'm not.
I just saw the red light go on. Why don't you turn your phone off? We already know we don't trust you. Talk about trust. Oh my God. Seriously.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Is recording a meeting, like, this isn't being recorded, but is recording the meeting with Jimmy?
Can you turn your phone off? I just saw the little red lights do something, so I don't know.
There's nothing, Mom.
Well,
Just turn it off.
can you turn your phone off?
Yeah, I can turn it off.
So it's been moved, seconded. I'm affirmative. Tony's affirmative.
I'm affirmative.
So would you please pass them out and give Jonathan a chance to read it and see if he has any reservations at all?
I can tell you right now, I'm not going to sign it.
Okay. Then I will sign mine.
I just wanted to cover it.
No, you don't have even seen this.
Yeah.
So this
You need to read it.
There's no need for me to sign an NDA. I've already agreed I'm not going to talk to programmers about this issue.
So there you go. Sign the NDA or else. And we all know, going back in history, Jonathan did not sign the NDA. I think he lost his position and was kind of demoted, and then all you know what broke loose, and all of this Daystar stuff is coming out. I thought Jonathan's argument was interesting there, that Joni has been into manipulation and control since Doug came on the scene. Like, he has noticed a difference, and how Tom just keeps bringing the conversation right back to the NDA. And hey, we're all willing to sign it, to protect the ministry, of course. And Joni, I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that Joni mentions how much she can't trust Jonathan, and something on his phone is blinking. And she's like, "Are you recording? Turn that phone off." And Jonathan does lie to them and say, no, I'm not recording. And he turns the phone off, and something is still recording. And we're guessing, of course, that is Jonathan. So just looking back at all of these different tactics used to control a situation so that ministry, which I hate to even use that word, that organization does not suffer at all. And how would that organization suffer? By losing viewers and losing money. And I think this is all about money and power and control. We would only hope and pray that Jonathan and Susie and viewers of Daystar can look at the teaching from a different perspective now and see that the false teachers that are promoted on Daystar are not biblical teachers. As a matter of fact, our friend Steve Kozar put up a video yesterday about this whole Daystar situation, and he shows a clip of Billy Burke. Terrible, terrible man, healing people out in the audience. Like, we haven't seen that before with Benny Hinn and all these fakertons. Like, I remember Catherine Kuhlman doing it, and everybody's getting healed, but you can't find any real doctor's evidence of any of these healings. So this Billy Burke clip shows this woman who I think has like a rap on. She has cancer. And of course she is healed of cancer.
Right before Christmas, I was told I had stage 4 lung cancer.
Stage 4 lung cancer right before Christmas.
Before Christmas.
Ooh.
And from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, through his stripes I am saved. I am healed.
What has left you? What? Pain?
No, I was never in pain.
Never in pain.
But I had a little bit of shortness of breath. They told me I had all these things on my throat that
All the
was going to be
nodules.
stripped.
Right.
And I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
We're going to treat the cancer.
Right.
And so the doctor was like, okay, well, go on and treat the cancer, and we'll deal with that later. And I'm like, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I swallowed last night. There was nothing. It was free and clear to swallow. It was.
So the difference was in the throat
Yeah,
area.
it was. It was huge in the throat.
Because the word
But-
was there was nodules being removed from the throat. Nodules.
But I'm telling you, it took it all. In my
I
heart,
believe
in
you,
my
ma'am.
psyche,
I believe
in my
you.
gut, in my soul, it's gone.
I believe you, that Holy Ghost. Come on, somebody give God a shit.
In that particular meeting. And Danny just made a comment about it with Steve on Steve's video, and received a comment back from someone who actually knows that woman, and says that woman, I think her name is Kim in real life, was not really healed of cancer. She's unfortunately, we know that God heals. God heals when he wants, who he wants. And our job is to pray for that healing. But this woman was not, in fact, healed by Billy Burke, just as an example. Now, we do not expect Jonathan and Susie to wake up in the morning and say, wow, yeah, it's all false teaching. Jonathan, that classic example of a frog being in water and you turn the water up and it's boiling, the frog doesn't even realize what's going on. Well, Jonathan is a frog that's been steeped in false teaching soup since the day he was born. Like, that is all he knows. God can open their eyes, and let's just pray that God does open their eyes to take out their Bibles and compare these false teachers to the Word of God. What is the good of Daystar all coming together and resolving this issue if they're going to get back on the air with Jonathan at the helm, having learned nothing from this whole situation, continuing to promote the same false teaching that it's promoted all along? What's the good of Daystar going off the air when you have things like TBN and PTL who are also promoting false teaching? So we can just pray that as many people as possible, that God uses this terrible situation to bring about good, to bring about his honor, and to bring about his glory. And that's what we hope. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.